back. We're back with more Live from the Heartland. We're up here on the stage at the Heartland Cafe. This is Michael James. I'm your host this morning. Katie Hogan's off in North Carolina. We got a number of people in the crowd. It's building up. We got more people sitting outside on a beautiful day. That was a beautiful tune. I confess that's Twin Peaks, and once again, that is one of my kids. And I'm really honored to have another one of my kids, Coya Paz, the famed and talented Coya Paz, showing up here today. Good morning to you, Coya.
Good morning.
I'm glad you got up so early, although I know with a daughter and teaching and all the projects you're in, you have to get up early all the time.
Yeah, I'm always up by 5:30. There's not time in the day.
I like that, 5:30. Well, I'm up close to that, not quite that early. And you brought a pal of yours along. You brought Ebony Bailey. Good morning to you, Ebony.
Good morning.
Be real close to that microphone. You're doing great. So the reason I asked Coya to come on is because I do follow her career. She is teaching at DePaul in the theater department. I got to say, she's got a cohort in the theater department who's been in the news lately. I don't know if you can comment, but we have a debate about Chicago that showed up in the New York Times last week. In any event, you got a great theater department, I'm sure, over there at DePaul.
Yeah, we have an excellent one. I stand behind it.
And one of the things that I got in an email this week was that Dope, a play that you had been talking about, actually you had asked me to write some stuff, my experiences, which I didn't ever do.
Right.
And wouldn't want to reveal some history that might incriminate me in some form or fashion. But tell us a little bit about Dope and how it came into being and when people could see it.
Sure. So Dope is a project of Free Street Theater, and Free Street Theater has been around since 1969. We're in our 44th year. We were the first theater company in Chicago to be racially integrated, and we started as a theater project that was by the people, for the people, with the people. Of late, in the last, 17 years or so, Free Street has really focused on youth artists making work. And since I've been at Free Street, what we do is every year the young artists pick a topic, so something that they want to research, write about, create a show about. And this year they picked marijuana as the subject of what they wanted to talk about. And you can just imagine,
it's a popular subject these days.
It is, and I think it's a really important one to talk about. So Dope is a piece written and performed by young artists aged 13 to 19 that looks at the politics and culture around marijuana.
And you pulled how many kids together? I say kids with love. How many young people were pulled together to put this show up?
Well, we have 7 people that performed the show, but there's another group of, another handful of students who helped create the show but don't perform in it.
All right, so we're talking marijuana here. We're talking marijuana. Last week was Marijuana Day, right? 420 or the week,
Yeah, last Saturday,
it was a big
week
deal.
ago.
I should have had you on them, but this is good enough. And Ebony, are you one of the performers?
Yes, I am.
And what role do you play? Maybe you guys could do a little bit for us here.
I play a lot of roles, actually. Since it's almost like a variety type show, there's no set there's no set storyboard, so I play a lot of different characters.
Can you give us a little taste of one of them?
Sure. Well, one of them I just come out and I tell that marijuana is sometimes grown in Mexico.
Ding.
And that's it.
So what's important to know about that is that the show doesn't have a narrative through line. It is 420 stories about marijuana, and they do a pretty good job of telling. Yesterday we had 513 stories. I think we got a little bit counting crazy with that. And so some of the stories are as short as what Ebony just said, where she comes out, there's a spotlight on her, she says, some weed is grown in Mexico. Ding! That's the end of the piece. And then we move on to something else.
How did you guys come up with the topic that you decided to do this? Was it you got the Free Street Theater, you got a group of young people you're working with, you're conceptualizing a performance of some sort.
Yeah.
How did this one come up? Was it popular? Was there competition for what you were going to do?
I'll let Ebony speak to that since she was part of the crew that ultimately decided to go for it.
The question was how do we create it?
How did you pick the topic? What are the dynamics of the Free Street Theater's picking, choosing a topic, developing it, that kind of thing?
Well, it was actually really difficult, and we didn't have a topic for a while. And so we just got together, like we get together all the time before we actually start forming the show. And we think of things that we all want to talk about. So we're all writing together, and then we end up finding something that we all want to write about. And ultimately, marijuana kept coming up in the talking, so there it was.
Well, why do you think marijuana became a popular topic? I mean, you're a young person, and it's an illegal substance. What's the deal with? What are the realities with marijuana?
I think because it's such a controversial topic, there's so many viewpoints that different people have. Like, I know a lot of people who are for marijuana, and then I know a lot of people who aren't, are totally against marijuana. So
it seems to be shifting to the positive.
Well, one of the things we try to do in the show is that it was really important, and this is typical of our work at Free Street in general, that we're not trying to present just one point of view on a topic, but especially when you're making a show about, as you say, an illegal substance with people who are underage. It was really important for us to look at a wide variety of issues related to marijuana, and some of the stuff that kept coming up was, some of the stuff I think you might think of typical as what quote-unquote teenagers have to say about pot, conversations with parents, peer pressure, things like that. But what we became sort of increasingly interested in a group was this question of, well, where does marijuana come from? So if there's pot at a party, how did it get to the party? Who sold it to the person who brought it to the party? Who sold it to that person? Where was it grown? Right? How did it get there? And so they did a lot of research. They watched documentaries. They read articles. We did research on the internet. We went out on the street and interviewed people. They had one day where they all prank called to their parents and called their parents and said, what would you do if I was thinking about smoking weed? And so we really were trying to look at a wide variety of things. And so the show starts with sort of this question of where marijuana is grown, and then how it's trafficked, and then moves on to kind of more personal issues.
Were there any people who talked? Is there any like you mentioned, parents and teenagers? Are there any scenes or little bits in the play where there's real contradictions between parents and kids around it? I would imagine, but I imagine there's some parents who are. I mean, a guy like myself would tell younger people that you don't need to smoke quite as much.
Right.
You can just hold your breath a little longer, that kind of thing. I mean, I watch young people, and they're just like going wild with it. It's like, which is unnecessary. It's like using too much of any good thing.
Yeah, we do have that point of view. So there is a
All
scene.
I'm getting in the audience here are smiles today.
Our smiles. Yeah, everybody agrees. Well, we did have, when they called their family members and said, what would you do if I smoke weed? We actually did get a wide range of response from, Ebony plays her grandmother just sobbing about the question.
Wow.
And then we had, somebody else's brother giving advice about, how to smoke weed and not get busted. So.
Tell me, Coya, tell me a little bit about Free Street Theater. You mentioned it's been around since '69.
Yeah.
I remember back in the old days them showing up with, I think, like a kind of a truck that the sides flipped up and they had a stage, and they did that kind of thing. And I was never quite sure. I was always skeptical of people who were sponsored by government stuff, but I think I would have to say they've done a really good job. How did you get involved, and who's involved? Is it kids from around the city? Is it a multinational, cross-race, cross-class, that kind of thing? Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, yeah, so there's a really great documentary that's available on YouTube about the early days of Free Street, and it's hilarious to me. I mean, the company predates me. I was not born until the mid-'70s. And, there are this great footage of everyone piling out of a tricked-out school bus, and they are shaking their tambourines with long, flowy dresses. And it feels very late 60s, early 70s. That's not exactly our mode anymore. We do still talk about social justice issues, although we tend to let whoever is involved in the project sort of drive what that means. So it's not about imposing an idea of social justice so much as getting people involved to think critically, right, and to know how to ask questions and get information and then create a performance about it. As I mentioned, we've been doing youth work for the last 17 years. That's going to continue, but starting in the 13-14 season, so coming up in the fall, we're moving back to a multi-generational platform, which is what we were. So we're going to continue to do work with youth because our young I hate to even call them young artists. Their work is brilliant. The writing is excellent. They're very funny. They're very smart. To say like, oh, a 15-year-old made it, I don't think you might know that if we didn't tell you a 15-year-old made it. But we're going to start working with adults as well and doing community residencies, and that's part of my involvement in it, is how do we take Free Street Theater from doing this sort of one focused thing to becoming a citywide vehicle for people to use performance to talk about the issues that are critical in their communities. You've had me on the show before, that's what I'm interested in, and that's the kind of work I make. So.
Well, the last thing I saw you did was about trash. I think where
environmental racism, yeah.
And I'm always impressed with, I like it that you have a real heavy dose of politics running through your artistic endeavors.
Yeah.
And I don't know, what do you got working on besides, you have Dope is up now for this weekend and next weekend. It's the Free Street Theater. I think the shows are Saturday nights?
No.
Friday nights.
Friday nights.
Saturday afternoons.
Yeah, Saturday at 2. Friday at 7, because we're in a Park District building. It closes at 9, so we have to get in and get out. After Dope, Free Street is gearing up for its summer program. We're doing a really exciting project where we build paleta carts and go out into the parks, and when people come to buy a popsicle, they get a 1 or 2 minute performance.
Oh,
in
that's
addition to
great.
we're really excited about that project. And
that's better than cows on corners. You have a little paleta cart and people doing drama or theater all over the city.
We'll be doing it all over the city. And in my own work, my own self, I have a solo performance coming up in June at Impact. So I'm excited about that.
And what do you teach when you teach drama at DePaul?
I teach a lot of different classes. I teach our directing sequence. I teach ensemble creation. I teach hip-hop theater. I teach community-engaged theater. I teach history of dramatic literature, a wide range.
And you show up on Vocalo radio on Thursdays on WLUW.
Yeah, that's one of the stations that carries the show.
I actually heard you on BEZ on the afternoon show. I said, they're getting all these young kids to talk about all this stuff, and I was really impressed.
Yeah, good.
Well, let's switch over here again to Ebony. Ebony, I'd like to ask you, you still go to school?
Yes, I do.
Where are you at school?
I go to school at Sen High School.
At Sen? Mm-hmm. Right in the neighborhood?
Yes, sir.
I did give a talk over there during the anti-war days out in the back, and all the football players started to boo me, and they were real gung-ho for the war. And this is my favorite Sen story. And I basically said, hey, I played football too, and just because you're a football player doesn't mean you have to be backward. And I ended up having a really good talk with these guys. This is the late 60s. So you're at Sen, and you live in the neighborhood, or you? I do live in the neighborhood. Oh, great. Well, we hope to see more of you. Now, how did you get involved in the Free Street Theater?
Well, one day my sister took me to Free Street because her friend was already involved in Free Street, and he was asking her for like a few months about her coming to join Free Street as well, and she just kept blowing it off. And then one day he asked her, "Are you free today?" And she didn't know why, so she just said yeah, and he ended up telling her to come to Free Street, and so she got sucked into it. And so of course we're twins, so I went with her. I went with her, and then from the first day we just loved it.
So do you think you want to be in theater as a career, or what are your plans?
Before Free Street, I never thought I could do this because I was very shy. Well, not shy, but...
I could tell you're breaking open. You're busting out.
But I never really thought to do it. But now I'm sort of considering it as like, a field to go into.
How many more years you have at Sen?
I'm a senior this year.
And what are your plans next year?
To go off to NIU.
Northern Illinois.
Yes,
Aha, that'll be good. You're close. You can still come back home to the neighborhood.
I plan to.
I'd
Well-
say Ebony is a natural director. So not everybody is, but she has a really good eye for stage picture and what looks good and timing and pacing. So I'm always trying to recruit her over to the high-paid, get-rich field of directing community-based theater.
Yeah, you're going to make it big. It's like community organizing. Well, let me ask either of you. Let me ask you, Ebony, what's your sense among young people, not only around the dope question, which is the focus of this current play, but your sense of where young people are at these days on a number of issues. We're always waiting for the youth to make the revolution, and I'm kind of want to know if you think there's, in your own lifetime, if you think there's more of a social, political consciousness among your friends as you become more aware, or are people just kind of, where are they at? Are they laid back thinking, well, not much has happened, not much I can do, or some people PO'd? Any of that you want to comment on?
I think a lot of young people just don't know, like, they should get to know something before they get into something. And a lot of my friends, or not a lot of my friends, but I know a lot of people who, smoke marijuana, but I don't think they realize everything that has to go into it for them, in order for them to, actually get the weed. So I think part of it is knowing what you're getting into. And I think if more people knew about just issues in general, then we'd be better as a group of young people.
And how do you like Sen?
I like it.
I mean, there's always been issues around Sen, whether it was going to improve, they had